Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about our spirits and souls. Do we or do we not have a spirit? If we do, then where is it now and where will it go after this life passes? My mother has been a Christian since a very young age, and I never really knew until one day we were at this amusement park. We were on the pirate ship ride, and whenever the ship went swinging down, my mom would go like, "Oh, Jesus save me! Oh, Jesus save me! Oh, Jesus save me!" That's when I kind of found out she was really into faith. Like, we went to church occasionally when I was a kid, but my mom, she never really pushed me into believing what she believed. It was years later until I kind of found my own way into faith. One day my mom came to me, gave me a book, and on the cover page was her writing, which read, "I'm glad you found faith. Now I feel relieved that I can entrust you with the Lord." So I guess my mom just quietly prayed for me throughout the years, which I am thankful. So I was the kind of person that wanted to believe there's something more to this life. I wanted to believe that I had a spirit and that one day I'd live in that form in a place maybe called heaven, and to throw away all my earthly worries behind, feeling nothing but happiness. I thought that was the most guaranteeing part, to feel 100% happiness. I wanted to believe, but at the same time, I wanted to be convinced. I didn't want to believe for the sake of believing. I wanted to have this rock solid, hard feeling about whatever I chose to believe in. So it took me quite a long while. In my senior year of college, I took a class called Yoga Philosophy, and that was kind of a turning point. The professor made us do a report on a documentary about near-death experience studies, and I was so intrigued by it that I aced the course. I think I had the highest score in my class. I was fascinated about these questions like, why do people have memory during the time they were medically declared dead? Why do people have this out-of-body experience, being able to see themselves on the sickbed while the nurses and doctors declared his or her own death? Why do nearly most of them have the so-called tunnel experience? During their claimed death time, why do people see things in places they've never been before? Some in places even hundreds of miles away. And how on earth do they communicate with each other when they don't even speak the same language? It was a fascinating subject to write a report on, and in my head and in my report, I was debating myself from various angles on both sides. You can argue from every perspective, to the most saying that all of these testimonies in the documentary were all made up if you wanted to. But it's hard to argue with the fact that every year there are people who pass away, no pulse, no breath, medically declared dead, wake up hours or days after they were declared dead. You have to admit that there are just things that medicine and science to this very day still cannot explain. And if medicine and science cannot explain, then maybe the answer lies within someplace other. And I found it in the Bible. My best friend in college was Christian, and we like to talk about stuff. One time we bumped into each other on the way to campus, and we just started talking and debating about stuff in life by the roadside. And in the end, I remember asking him this question. So if you're telling me that there's nothing you can take away with you from this physical world, then what is the meaning of this life? What is the meaning of this all? And he answered me, well, there is one thing you can take away with you, and that is you. Your spirit will inherit your personality, your character, your wisdom, everything good and bad. And I like that thought. So the most important investment I could make in this life would be to make myself the best person I could be, since that would be the only thing that I could take with me in the end. I started studying the Bible, and I remember reading the Bible from cover to cover within a couple of months. To be honest, it was kind of hard to digest, but there were a lot of things that I've learned from it. And to answer my doubts about the near-death experience, well, there are a couple of scriptures that I would like to bring up. There was a man whose daughter who was extremely ill, and at the time being, people were talking about a person who healed the sick. His name was Jesus from Nazareth. So the man comes pleading for Jesus to come save his daughter, but before they could even set off, people from their house sent message that the girl has already died. But Jesus said to the man, "Don't be afraid, just believe." So they go to the man's house. Everybody there's crying, they're mourning, but Jesus says, "She's not dead, she's asleep." And everybody laughs at him, like, well, what are you saying? But Jesus takes the girl's hand and says, "My child, get up." And look at what the Bible says next. This is in Luke 8:55 NIV. It says, "Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Her spirit returned, and her body came back to consciousness, and she got up." Let's take a look at another incident in the Bible, and this one is actually hundreds of years before the previous one. A prophet named Elijah was hiding from the king of the time being, and a widow who had a young boy decided to take him in. But during his stay, the young boy grew ill and eventually died. The widow was in great pain and questioned why God brought death upon her son. So Elijah took the boy and started praying. And this is his prayers. Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? And what Elijah does next is crucial, and this is in the Bible. King James Version, first book of Kings, chapter 17, 21 and 22. O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. And the boy's soul came into him again, and he came back to life. Through this, we can understand that there's a connection between life and the soul and the spirit. It's the spirit that gives us life. And once the spirit departs the body for good, then the body demises and eventually decays. But if for some reason, usually the rare case, the spirit comes back, returns to the body, then as long as the body is still functional, it comes back to life. So the spirit is the true key to life. The body is more of a capsule to carry the spirit. The body disappears one day, but the spirit continues to live on forever. Not 100 years, not 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, no, forever. So the next question is, if each one of us has a spirit, then how do we grow it? How do we feed it? How do we invest in our spiritual life? And that's something we'll talk about in our next video. You can check it out up here or at the end screen or in the information box down below. I'll see you next video. God bless you all.